Today we're talking about how to have harmonious relationships. And this is a very important concept because relationships can be such a source of suffering in our lives. Relationships with spouse, children, parents, other family, co-workers, everyone in our world. How can we create that sense of peace that envelops everyone that we're around? Remember that beautiful story of Gandhi, who could walk into a room with squabbling politicians, yelling and agitated, and just his presence of peace would make everyone quiet and settled. So we want to cultivate that kind of peace that can emanate out. And so that brings us to the first part in this series. If we want to have harmonious relationships, it has to start within our own selves. We have to have harmony within. We have to be comfortable with ourselves and not fight with ourselves. So often when people are upset, they just get revved up in their minds and go over and over and over a situation, and it gets worse and worse. It's not the way we want to live. And so what we need to do is cultivate consciously as a first step towards having harmonious relationships with others, having a harmonious relationship with ourselves. And the first step in that is very basic and just physical plain things, like getting enough sleep, getting regular exercise, watching your diet so that it's not full of salt and sugar and coffee. I remember one friend of mine said, "I never give my wife coffee. Turns her into an axe murderer." Well, if you're one of those people that it affects adversely, then switch to decaf by all means, or forego it altogether. Become a tea advocate. We need to work with ourselves. We've been in these bodies for a few decades now, and it's time that we learned from all the trial and error that we've gone through in our lives, what works and what doesn't, what gives us stress and what calms us down. And the more that we can cultivate that kind of inner peace, the more we will see it reflected in our world. The world is a world of mirrors. I've often told that story, but it bears repeating, that there was once an ancient temple that was all abandoned and overgrown with trees, and the door was torn off. It was all overgrown. And one day a dog wandered in. He let out a yelp and fell down dead. And then many centuries later, another dog wandered in. And after a while, he came back out, wagging his tail. What had happened? Well, the first dog realized that he was walking into a temple made of mirrors. And so he growled, and he saw reflected 1,000 dogs growling back at him. And he got so fearful he fell down dead. Well, into this temple of mirrors, some centuries later, another dog wandered in, and he wagged his tail when he saw those thousands of dogs. And so he made 1,000 friends. What we experience in this world is a world of mirrors. And so when we give loving, kind, centered, compassionate energy, when we feel it in ourselves and we give it out to others, that's what comes back to us. So when we experience someone getting very angry at us or yelling or any of that, it comes because at some point in the past, that's how we acted towards another, and we're getting it back. And so often in relationships, whether it's family or strangers or whoever it is, there's a knee-jerk reaction. Someone yells and we yell back. It's just this trigger. And that's something that we need to work on. We should not be reacting that quickly. If there's negative energy coming at us, we need to evaluate it and give back something appropriate from a center of peace. So many situations can be diffused before they escalate into tragedy through kindness, through humor sometimes, through respect, through friendship. I read an article about someone who was being harassed. There was some sort of white supremacy gathering that she just happened to be walking by on the street, and she was targeted, and people were verbally abusing her and starting to be physically abusive, pushing her around. And two women across the street saw this happening, and they came over and they said, "Oh, it's so good to see you, honey. I've been wondering where you were." And they just pretended to be her friends. They linked arms with her and just walked her right out of that situation. So we need to be creative and assertive in our love for other people. And we can do that through cultivating that sense of strength and peace within ourselves. It's very important. It's the most important thing that you can do for yourself, is to live in that consciousness of peace and harmony, and live for the blessing of channeling that peace and harmony out into the world.